We want people who are smart or be able to use their mind and apply that technical talent. The fourth one, I think, is a critically important one. You're going to see some quotes a little bit later on. It's about the notion of learning. We all need to have the passion to learn, and because things change so regularly, particularly in the technology area, we need to unlearn, and then we need to relearn. And you hear people talk about lifelong learning. It is about learning, unlearning, and relearning each and every day. And so I would contend that while you're in school here today, and you're going to finish your school for a while, recognize to be successful in the job career environment, continue to move forward. Within the Boeing Company, we spend $65 million a year on tuition reimbursement for our employees. We have 157,000 employees, and we allow all of our employees to be able to go to school, okay, and we pay for it. We don't care if they take underwater basket weaving, okay, if they want to take a class about being a doctor, a lawyer, or continue the skills that are associated with their job. But it's critically important we keep the minds sharp, because the value that all of us bring to the table is not necessarily our ability to manipulate widgets, it's the mind. That's what's so critically important. It's that intellectual power and processing that we bring to the table. Because as more and more automation comes to the table, we're going to have fewer and fewer of the task about manipulation. We can get the robots to take care of that. We can get the computers to take care of it. It's about using the mind. That's what brings value. That is so critically important. And the last is, don't dismiss the past, but focus on the future. What went on yesterday is really nice and interesting, but it has no impact on what your future life's going to be. It's really about thinking about where am I going, what's the value proposition, and I can tell you in the markets that we operate in, whether we're competing against Airbus, or we're competing against Lockheed or Northrop, or we have issues in terms of performance, it is all about the future. So from today forward is what we need to worry about, not what's gone on in the past. What we have in the past is what we learned from, what worked, what didn't work. What is important is what goes on from the future. The challenge today is we do not have a labor shortage. I talked about the number of people that we have overseas today in this global market. There is not a labor shortage. There is a skills shortage. We have enough people. What we need is people with the right skills, the intellectual property to go forward. And I think this is a critical part as you think about the sorts of opportunities you want to pursue. It really is about making sure we have the right skills to do our job. Within Boeing and many other areas, we're looking for people who have the right technical skills. And I think about all of the jobs that go on today, whether it's anywhere from someone being a hairdresser to doing computer programming, all have some technical aspects. She says, come on, Rick, what's a hairdresser worrying about? Color, chemical processing, the environment, all the things that happen to the health and the body. I mean, those are the effective ones because they're thinking about their end customers and the implications. And so we look and say about 30% of the world needs college education. Everyone else needs some sort of technical competency. In some cases, it's certification. But we all need to have some form of technical background. So for those of you who are business majors, pursue, go out on a limb once in a while and try a little bit of engineering along the way. It will help you better represent and understand what's going on in the community in which you're dealing with. For those of you who are on the technical side, try a humanities class once in a while. Try some music. Try some perspective that balances out what's going on so you really get some sense of the relationships. I mean, when I go to the business schools, it says, get some of your business folks over the engineering side. That's where the technology investments, that's where the real technology, that's where your products are. Those in engineering, go see the business side so you can get some. If you haven't been to education, communication, go around that education out. BCC is a great place to be able to do that. And with the number of students that we have or the number of folks we have in Puget Sound, we reimburse our Boeing employees about $250,000 a year for tuition here at BCC. So we see BCC as an important part of helping our own employees be able to move forward. This chart here just gives a kind of an example of some of the challenges that we face, dealing with some of our Boeing customers in the technology area with the Department of Defense. What it says is we have fewer and fewer students with the right skill set, plenty for labor, plenty of volume out there, but not enough to be able to meet our technology needs, to be able to meet some of the Department of Defense requirements. And what you see up there is aeronautical engineering, software engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical, mathematics, chemical, material, and physics. And as you see in this chart right here, most of them are in the Bachelor's of Science area. Okay? So once again, going back to my second slide, it's not about a labor shortage. It's about people with the right skills to be able to get their job done. And the challenge is getting worse as we go forward. Now, one of the things that's interesting is, as a historian, it's important to go back and look and say, so where has the workforce been in America over the last 40, 50, 60 years? A fellow by the name of Dr. Stephen Glenn did an analysis to begin to look at, so what has been happening in America that since 1963, we've seen a continued decline in performance in America of our high school graduating seniors. Now, I'm part of that. I was born in 1952, okay, graduated from high school. So if we get this right here, I guess it was 1970, went off to college, so I'm part of that continued decline. This chart gives us some sense about that. And what we're seeing is that in World War II, we had a tremendous transformation going on in America. People moved off the farms. People moved away from their social infrastructure and moved into the cities. And many of us today have grown up in the cities, okay? And the challenge we face is we no longer have the infrastructure that we'd have on the farm. When I say infrastructure, so parents, had kids, and kids were of value from an economic standpoint, and that's where a lot of us learned work ethic. Get up in the morning, go do our chores. And how many of your parents make you do chores, right? Okay, some of us did, some of us didn't. How many of you love chores? No hands go down. Okay, and so you get up in the morning, particularly on a farm, you got to go to work. Then you go to school, you come home, you got to work. What was really important about that, not also did, we all learned a work ethic associated with that, but the other thing we learned was we learned how to apply what we learned in school to the real world. We had real applications. Even though we may be farming, okay, we may have to fix something, something broke, but we learned about how to apply what we learned in school. Today, one of the biggest challenges we have is we don't have a lot of real-world applications of what we learn in school to apply in our real life. So we kind of get the knowledge in, but like all of us, we gotta apply it. How many of us learned a foreign language in high school? How many of you can still speak that foreign language? Okay, a few. I know I took 4 years of high school in German, or 4 years of German in high school. I took 3 years of German in college. I could read it, I could write it, I can do all that. If someone came to me and says, "Sprechen Sie Deutsch?" I'd say, "Nur ein bisschen." It means it's only a little bit, okay, because it's not something that I've used regularly. Boy, I'm lost. Okay, and so a real challenge, relative to language and any of the skills, you got to be able to apply it. So what Dr. Glenn pointed out is we learned a lot in school, but we weren't able to apply it very well. The other thing that came along in terms of that same time period was a tremendous impact of technology in the media. And I'm going to share with you some statistics about media from your standpoint as you walked in, because we all asked you to do a survey, gather some data, give you some sense about what impact the media has on our lives, about culture, about perspectives, about attitudes and behaviors, which is a critically important part about thinking about what the future work opportunities are. And so fundamentally, an important part about understanding the past, not because it's going to drive for the future, but it's important about what has gone on in our lives, and as employers, what's important as we begin to see people enter the workforce. Now, one of the challenges we found is, and there's been lots of programs out, is over the years, the federal government has kind of responded to a continued decline of what we see over time. In fact, after World War II, not only do we see a decline in academic performance, we also saw some changes in social behavior. Increase in teenage pregnancy, increase in alcohol abuse, increase in drug abuse. And so a lot of federal programs were put in place to respond to that. You see up on the screen, some of what those programs are. And so when we think about our role in a democracy, being able to talk to our legislators about where they're applying funding, this is an opportunity that we have to impact how we spend our federal money, how we spend even our state money in our programs. And I know there's a number of ballot initiatives in the state of Washington about where we spend programs. Here's a couple more programs related to that in terms of where we spent dollars. I think what we've learned over the last several years, though, and it's critically important as we think about what's going on from an education standpoint, is making sure we have an alignment between what goes on from an education standard standpoint and what we're looking for in the workforce. This is an important element as we go forward and as you go forward, because it's going to determine your success factor out in the job market. what we find is we have a real focus on education.